The first time I noticed something was wrong, it wasn't the garage itself. It was the silence. No warning letters. No HOA threats taped to my door. No angry emails with bold red text and fake legal language. Just construction noise. I own a quiet, oddly shaped piece of land just outside an HOA boundary. I bought it years ago because I like space, trees, and not being told what color my mailbox has to be. The property line is clean on paper, but messy in real life. Old fencing, uneven terrain, and a long stretch of grass nobody's touched in decades. That's why I didn't think much of it when trucks started rolling in next door. At first, I assumed the HOA had approved another overpriced luxury upgrade. You know the kind, 3-car garage, decorative stone, absolutely no parking allowed inside it. But then I noticed something strange. The concrete slab looked close. Too close. Every morning on my walk, it seemed to creep a little farther toward my side of the property. I told myself I was imagining it. Perspective can mess with you. Slopes distort lines. People make mistakes in their heads. Until one afternoon, I saw the rebar. It was on my land.
Not barely.
Not maybe.
Clearly.
Obviously. Undeniably. I pulled up my county plat map that night. Then the deed. Then the old survey from when I bought the place. The boundary markers were faint, but they were there, and the garage footprint crossed them by more than 8 feet.
8 feet.
This wasn't a shrub. This wasn't a fence post. This was a full concrete foundation for a permanent structure. So the next morning, I walked over and politely asked the homeowner, let's call her Karen, if she'd had a survey done before building. She smiled. Not nervous. Not confused. Confident. Oh, the HOA approved everything, she said, like that ended the conversation. I explained, calmly, that HOA approval doesn't override property lines. I showed her the map on my phone. She didn't even look. She waved her hand and said, that land's always been part of our neighborhood. That's when I knew exactly how this was going to go. Within 2 hours, I had an email from the HOA. Not asking questions. Not requesting clarification. Declaring. They said their records showed the garage was compliant. They said I was interfering with approved development. They strongly suggested I stop harassing residents. No mention of surveys. No mention of deeds. Just authority cosplay. So, I did the only thing that actually matters. I called a licensed surveyor. 3 days later, bright orange stakes went into the ground. Right through the garage slab. Perfectly aligned. Officially marked. Legally undeniable. When Karen came outside and saw them, she didn't yell. She didn't call the HOA. She just stood there, frozen, staring at the stakes like they were ticking bombs, because she finally realized something the HOA never expected. This wasn't a complaint. This was evidence. And once stakes go in, there's no pretending anymore. The surveyor didn't just drop stakes and leave. He brought flags, metal pins, paperwork with seals, and most importantly, he brought witnesses. Karen tried to intercept him before he finished. I was watching from my porch when she stormed over, waving HOA documents like they were arrest warrants. She told him the HOA had already verified the boundary. She told him he was trespassing. She told him she'd call the police. The surveyor didn't even look up. He calmly explained that county records outrank HOA maps every single time. Then he pointed, politely, professionally, at the bright orange stake planted dead center in her fresh concrete slab. That mark, he said, is your problem. Within an hour, the HOA president showed up. Same routine. Same tone. Same fake confidence. They claimed historical use. They claimed neighborhood precedent. They claimed the land had been effectively absorbed into the HOA decades ago. That phrase alone told me everything I needed to know. Because land doesn't get absorbed. It gets bought, deeded, or stolen. And this time, they picked the wrong owner. I forwarded the survey to the HOA's legal contact and included one short sentence. Please advise how you intend to remove a permanent structure built on my property without consent. No threats. No insults. No drama. Just reality. That's when the tone changed. Suddenly, the HOA wasn't sure. Suddenly, they needed time to review documentation. Suddenly, Karen stopped smiling. Construction halted that afternoon. Tools vanished. Workers didn't come back. The half-finished garage sat there like a crime scene, orange stakes cutting through it like warning flares. Then the letters started. From their lawyer. They suggested an easement. They suggested compensation. They suggested I sell the affected portion to resolve things amicably. I laughed out loud. Because they still didn't get it. This wasn't about money. This wasn't about compromise. This was about the fact that an HOA-approved structure had crossed a line it legally could not cross, and now the clock was ticking. Every day that slab stayed, there was another violation. Another liability. Another problem their insurance definitely didn't want. Karen finally came over herself. No HOA tone. No authority voice.
Just panic.
She asked, quietly, what I wanted. I told her the truth. I want my land back exactly the way it was. Her face strained. Because for the first time, she understood what that meant. And the HOA? They were about to learn how expensive assumptions really are. The HOA tried to slow-walk the problem into disappearing. First, they claimed the garage was temporary. Then they said it was part of an approved community improvement. Finally, they argued that since the structure wasn't finished, it technically didn't exist yet. That argument collapsed the moment my attorney sent them 3 things in one email. The certified survey. The original deed dating back 40 years. A photo of Karen's garage slab sitting squarely on my land, stakes and all. The response came fast, too fast. They requested an emergency meeting. Not a hearing. Not a review. An emergency meeting. I didn't attend. Instead, I sent a letter giving them 10 days to remove the encroaching structure and restore the property to its original condition. No extensions. No negotiations. No easements. That's when panic officially set in. Karen started posting in the HOA group chat. Screenshots got forwarded to me later. She accused the board of failing to protect homeowners. She blamed the contractor. She blamed the old maps. She blamed me for being uncooperative. But the truth was simple. She built without checking. The HOA approved without verifying. And now no one wanted to pay for it. The contractor refused responsibility. The HOA's insurance declined coverage the moment they saw the survey. And Karen? She suddenly realized that if the garage had to come down, she would be writing the check. That's when she made her biggest mistake. She sent workers back. No permits. No notice. No permission. They tried to quietly cut into the slab at sunrise, hoping to adjust the structure just enough to avoid a full demolition. I called the county. Within 40 minutes, inspectors arrived. Work stopped. Fines were issued. And the site was officially tagged as a recorded encroachment violation. That tag mattered. Because now the problem wasn't just between me and Karen. It was between the HOA and the county. The board called again, this time begging. They offered to buy the land at above market value. They offered to cover legal fees. They even offered to amend HOA rules in my favor. I declined everything. Not because I'm unreasonable. Because the law doesn't bend just because someone poured concrete where they shouldn't. Day 8 arrived with no action. Day 9 came with silence. On day 10, my attorney filed for a court-ordered removal and damages for trespass. Only then did Karen finally show up. No attitude, no clipboard, no witnesses. She stood there staring at the garage that never should have existed. She asked if it was too late. I told her the truth. It stopped being personal the day you ignored the stakes. The following week, a demolition crew arrived, not to build, but to undo. Jackhammers broke the slab. Walls came down. The garage disappeared piece by piece. Neighbors watched in stunned silence as the mistake became visible to everyone. And the HOA? They learned something they'd never forget. Approval doesn't equal ownership. Assumptions don't beat surveys. And land always remembers where its lines are drawn. Once the garage came down, the fallout started rolling downhill fast. The HOA board thought demolition would close the matter. They were wrong. because tearing down the structure didn't erase what had already happened. The trespass was documented. The encroachment was recorded. And the county had logged violations under both the HOA and Karen's name. That meant consequences. First came the fines, daily penalties for unpermitted construction, illegal land use, and failure to verify boundary lines. Then came the legal fees. The HOA's attorney quietly resigned after admitting, on record, that no independent survey had been reviewed before approval. That admission cracked everything open. Homeowners started asking questions. How many other structures had been approved without surveys? How many fences, sheds, and additions were technically on land that didn't belong to the HOA? And if this could happen to me, who else was at risk? The board tried damage control. They sent out a carefully worded newsletter calling the incident a boundary misunderstanding. They assured residents that this was a rare oversight and that new procedures would be implemented. Too late. Someone leaked the county report. Someone else leaked the emergency meeting minutes. And someone, no idea who, posted before and after photos of the garage demolition with the caption, "Know your property lines." The HOA didn't. Karen stopped attending meetings. She stopped posting online. Her house went quiet. But the HOA's problems were just getting started. The county required a full audit of HOA-approved structures built within the last 10 years. That meant surveys, inspections, paper trails, and accountability. The bill for that audit? 6 figures. Suddenly, dues were going up. Special assessments were discussed. And homeowners who had cheered Karen's authority before were now furious that her mistake was about to cost them real money. That's when the board tried one last move. They proposed a retroactive easement. On paper, it looked clean. I'd grant a narrow strip of land to the HOA, they'd record it, and the whole mess could be officially resolved. What they didn't understand was that an easement doesn't erase a violation, it just papers over it. And I wasn't interested. My attorney responded with a single sentence. No easement will be considered after willful trespass. That phrase, willful trespass, hit like a hammer. Because now intent was on the record. Karen hadn't just made a mistake. She had continued after the stakes were placed. After notice was given. After warnings were ignored. That distinction mattered in court. When the HOA realized this wasn't going away, they did something unthinkable. They voted to remove Karen from her position. Not for building the garage, but for exposing the HOA to liability. She lost her title, her influence, and her protection in one closed-door vote. By the end of the month, the board had a new president, a new legal team, and a new rule: no construction approval without a certified survey attached. As for the land, I restored it. Topsoil replaced concrete. Grass replaced rubble. The stakes stayed for a while. Not as a threat. As a reminder. Neighbors started stopping by, not to argue, but to ask questions. About surveys.
About deeds.
About what they actually own versus what they'd assumed. And I answered them honestly. Because this wasn't about winning. It was about boundaries, real ones. By the time everything settled, the neighborhood didn't feel the same anymore. Not quieter, just more careful. People walked their property lines with fresh eyes. Old assumptions started falling apart. Fences that had always been there were suddenly questioned. Sheds got measured. Decks got reviewed. A few homeowners quietly ordered their own surveys, just to be sure. Because everyone had learned the same lesson the hard way. HOA approval doesn't override ownership. Karen moved within 3 months. No goodbye post. No explanation. Just a for sale sign that went up one morning and came down faster than anyone expected. The listing photos carefully avoided the empty patch of land next door. The HOA never mentioned her again. In fact, they never mentioned the garage at all, except buried deep in meeting minutes as resolved encroachment issue. No names. No details. Just paperwork language trying to erase an embarrassing chapter. But people remembered. They remembered how confident she was. How sure she sounded when she said, "The HOA approved it." How dismissive she was when the survey stakes went in. And they remembered how fast that confidence vanished when facts showed up. As for me, I didn't sue. I didn't push for damages. I didn't need to. The land was returned. The record was clear. And the message was permanent. That strip of grass where the garage once stood stayed empty, not because I couldn't build on it, but because I didn't want to. It became a buffer, a visible line between what's mine and what people assume they can take. Every new homeowner who moved in heard the story eventually. It passed around quietly, like local folklore. Make sure you know where your property ends, or you might find out the hard way. The HOA changed after that. Less aggressive, more paperwork, a lot more lawyers. And every construction request now comes with a survey, signatures, and disclaimers longer than the bylaws themselves. Because once an HOA gets burned by reality, it doesn't forget. Neither do the people who watched it happen. So if there's one thing this whole mess proved, it's this. Ownership isn't about signs, rules, or confidence. It's about lines on a map and whether you respect them. Karen didn't. And half a garage later, everyone else learned why that matters.